After more than a decade of teaching writing, I have noticed some errors that come up quite often in people's work. So I created a list of words to avoid, not because these words should be banned, but rather they should be signals to you to check your sentence. That's all I mean. They're signals. They should not become the default language that you choose without thinking about it. Let me just walk through a couple of these choices and explain why. So first of all, sentences that are constructed, it is, there are, this is, that is, usually can be cut down to half their size. They often lack clarity, and as people are writing, those are signals to you to revise that sentence. For example, if I said, it is the point that the author was trying to make. If we take out the construction and change it to the author was trying to make, and then you explain the point, this point, and explain it. That's what I mean by clarity, is they actually remove the clarity because they clutter your sentence. And if you look closely at the sentence, you may find that you did not say what you intended to say. Often it can be as easy as cutting it is, and the word that will appear later in the sentence. And if you cut those things, the sentence by itself probably already has a subject and verb that's there, and you don't need to do anything else. Some of the other words that come up that become default, good, better, bad, worst, etc., right, wrong, those are words that are what I call non-committal, same with important or interesting. You have not said what you thought you were going to say. So if I say it is important that Lewis addresses the will, imagination, and intellect. Well, why? Becomes the very next question for the reader. Instead, you could say, Lewis follows his medieval writers by focusing on the intellect, imagination, and will, returning modern readers who have lost this way of conceiving of the human person. Something like that. So it becomes a signal to say, okay, why did you say it was important? Or why was it good? Or why was it interesting? And then to go from there. When you're writing, you're going to automatically or default say good, bad, etc. But then as you're revising, what did you really mean? Did you mean that it was beautiful, that it was delightful, that it was scary, that it was unnerving, that it became complicated? What did you intend to say, and could you use a more specific choice in your language? A few other instances of specific choice. With verbs, a lot of times we default the way we talk, but oral discourse is different than written discourse. Orally, all the time, we say things like, I'm going to make a problem, I'm going to address, I see I even upgraded my language as I talked, I'm going to get something, I'm going to do something. But when we write, we want to be more specific. You can make a cake, you can make a deal, you can make a statement, but all of those are different ways of making things. Therefore, we want to be more specific with what verb did we intend. Can we make the verb more clear? So I would go through my essay, for example, after I write it the first time, and then highlight do, get, make, and try to have different choices for those verbs. A few more examples. Adverbs. So, of course, people always harp on the adverbs. I especially harp on the adverbs. Adverbs do two things often. They hide the thought. So if you say, I don't know, Homer wisely, blah, blah, blah. Well, you are assuming some wisdom in something that Homer wrote that you didn't explain to your reader. And rather than actually dig out the thought and explain all the reasons that such a choice that Homer made was wise, you threw the word wisely in there. And you thought, therefore, you've explained yourself, but you haven't. So it would actually take probably another sentence and make it clearer to your reader to say, Homer did such and such, and this is why it was a wise thing to do. So look for your adverbs and see, are you hiding a thought that you could explain better to your reader? The second part with adverbs, you were trying to strengthen a verb, but all you did was cripple it. In a sense, you added a crutch to the verb instead of making it as strong as it could be. So when you say someone did something quickly, well, you probably could just choose a better verb. He sped through whatever process is going on. And that's a stronger than he did it quickly. He sped through it, right? He sprinted through whatever. So you're trying to choose words that accurately express what it is you're trying to say and not assume and put all of the work on the reader. Another instance of verbs doing this, very just, you're trying to emphasize, add a little punch. He just did this. He very much did this. But it detracts, especially when it's overused. Every once in a while, it sounds good. So when you read the sentence out loud, you're like, I need the word just in there. I need to, just for the meter. Just see, I did it orally. I need it because it strengthens what I'm saying. It adds a rhythm to it. It adds an emphasis. But use it with its actual punch. If you're just hitting someone with just over and over again, you've actually made the verb more impotent than more powerful. Also, words clearly, obviously. Ugh, my least favorite words to find in writing. And the reason why, if it's clearly, then why are you telling me? Or if it's obvious, then don't write it down. And if it's not obvious, then when you said obviously and clearly, you're not only lying to me, but you're talking down to me because I didn't see that, right? So please try to avoid obviously and clearly. There's just no reason that I can think of that you would use those without trying to talk down to somebody else. Finally, I'm going to end with I, we, are. Okay, these are great words to use, but the reason that I'm putting them in the words to avoid is often they become a break in your thoughts. For example, you'll say, I find blah, blah, blah. I think, I believe. We don't even need, you can just scrap those phrases. The very fact that you said, I believe Virgil is a better poet than Homer. If you just say Virgil's a better poet than Homer, we got what you believe. So you didn't have to actually say that. Now, if you're telling a personal story, use I, use we, use are, but do not assume those things about readers unless you know that you can assume them, right? If you're telling a story about your family, we always went to our grandparents every single year at Christmas. We did that. That was something that we did. But when you said we as a family believed that oatmeal should have brown sugar in it instead of maple syrup, I don't know, making some assessment. Well, did everyone believe that in your family? You know, did all Americans think a certain thing when you say we, or are you only talking about maybe we Texans or we people who attended this church in particular? So be also very careful about how you use I and we and are. So that is my quick, less than 10-minute class on how to write more clear sentences and how to be in control of your language. I hope that it is very helpful. See, I used it is, you can say all these things when you talk. You don't have to watch your grammar when you talk. But when you're writing, write it out how you would say it, and then go back and make it clearer for your reader. That's the difference between written and oral discourse. So I hope it's been helpful for you, and I can't wait to see your writing improved from what we just talked about.